Right, on today's episode of Let's Talk Films, we're going to discuss Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. I also saw The Lost Boys on the big screen, which was quality, proper quality. And about an hour and a half ago, I got out of the first Omen. So yeah, no, let's get into it. Let's start off with Godzilla Kong. I'm not going to spend too much time on Godzilla Kong because there's not too much to say, man. It's exactly what you'd expect. It's a popcorn blockbuster, and it is what it is, man. It's just two monsters smashing shit up, and that's sick. When that part's are happening, it's sound. It's proper sound. But my complaint about this film is they're expecting us to care about these human storylines, and the laziness of the writing is criminal. It's absolutely terrible. Some of these characters, it's like a first pass. They haven't flushed the characters out whatsoever. It's surface level bullshit characters, and they spend way too much time like trying to get you to care about these people, and they haven't put the time in the script for you to actually ever care about them enough. You just want to see Godzilla and Kong smashing shit up, and that's sound. When, like I say, when that's happening, it's exactly what it's meant to be. It's just fun. You see a suplex. Godzilla suplexes Kong. I've never seen that. That's sound. That was sick. But these characters, the humans, are just pathetically written. They're terrible. And for my liking, they spend way too much time and give them far too much screen time because they're not good enough. They don't deserve it. None of them characters deserve that much time on the screen. They're just not good enough. So yeah, my criticism of that film will be the characters are garbage and there's not enough time of the monsters. Also, the way they handle Godzilla, it's basically a cameo, and until them two actually meet, it's like they could have lifted this from like the 54 Godzilla. It's just the military tracking his movements, and we've seen that in so many Godzilla films. Like so many Godzilla films, it's the military tracking his movement, and that's what you get. And it's like, dude, I thought we were past this, man. Like everybody knows Godzilla's story. This is like Batman's origin story. You don't need to know that his ma got shot. It's everybody knows it by now. You don't need to delve into that. And it's the same with Godzilla, man. Like some of the dialogue as well, they give you like exposition dialogue of like, this is where he's heading, and this is why we think he's heading there. And it's like, we know. We've seen a Godzilla film. We know exactly why he's heading there. Like he's heading to the radiation points, like he always does, because that's what happens. For me, they should just jib all that. Just have them two monsters fighting. Just have 2 hours of that, and everyone would be happy. Because the characters are boring. They're just dull. But yeah, man, we'll move on. Next up, I got to see The Lost Boys. Now, I've always preferred Fright Night to The Lost Boys, and I don't know what it was about this viewing. But firstly, when you see older films on the pictures, which I've seen The Lost Boys twice before on the big screen, so it's always a quality watch. Like, but when you go, it's usually quite dead because it's an older film, and the people who are there are obviously fans, so you don't get any dickheads whatsoever. Like, there's never a dickhead in an old screening of a film. But when I turned up, it was packed, like proper packed, and it was quite shocking to be honest because they actually had two showings. They had one at 7:50 and 8:20, which is like, I guess that was because the first one was a sellout. Yeah, so it was really busy, and for whatever reason, I think it was just the busier pictures. I liked seeing the comedy. I got the comedy of The Lost Boys, which I think's always kind of went over my head a bit. I've never found it too funny. Other than the Frog Brothers, I've always liked them, obviously, but like some of the lines that Grandpa says is he's so funny. And yeah, man, that was an incredible viewing because, like I say, I've always preferred Fright Night. I think I still do. I think it still is just slightly better. And I watched Fright Night about 2 weeks ago, actually, just because I knew I was going to go and see The Lost Boys, so I actually wanted to have them both fresh in my mind. And I think Fright Night is slightly better. But The Lost Boys, man, like, yeah, I've always found it to be fairly average. But yeah, man, that viewing, I finally got it. Like I understand the Lost Boys hype, which I know I'm very late to the party because it's the fucking Lost Boys in it. Let's be honest, everyone loves it. But I've always found the soundtrack to be better than the film, to be honest. But yeah, the Lost Boys, it was a phenomenal viewing, and I think I said this last time, but go and see old films on the big screen, man. There's nothing like it. If you see classic films coming up, which I know the Odeon are showing, Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead, I can't wait to see Day of the Dead because Day of the Dead's my favourite of the Dead trilogy. And I know in April or May, beginning of May or end of April, they are showing Day of the Dead. So check your Odeons if you actually want to check that out because it's an absolute masterpiece, Day of the Dead. I fucking adore Day of the Dead. But yeah, we'll move on to the first Omen now. I will say, like, my expectations were through the floor for this, mainly because I had The Exorcist Believer, you know. To be honest, it was just, all the trailers were looking very, very, like, run-of-the-mill. It's like a religious nun film, for Christ's sake, innit? Like, that's what it is. And for the first half an hour, it's exactly like every other film. It's like an American nun goes to Rome to, like, take her vows. It's not vows. I think it's called to get her veil. I think they call it in the film. I'm not sure if that's a real term or whatever, but and then she sees some sketchy stuff that make her question her faith, and it's so formulaic. It's just hitting every beat. And the first half an hour, I was just like, I don't know if I've got 2 hours of this in me. I wanted to go home. It was not hitting at all. And then out of nowhere, the main character sees somebody giving birth, and it goes so graphic and gets so strange. The music, that birthing scene, and everything is just so extreme. And the score is by Mark Corvin, and I didn't notice until the birthing scene. I didn't notice it was a Mark Corvin score, but I adore his score to The Witch. In fact, the opening, actually, it's got like chanting, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like The Witch. But everything else was very much like Jerry Goldsmith's Omen score, which is amazing. It's an unbelievable score. So I just thought he wouldn't give nods to that. So that's what I was enjoying in the first half an hour, to be honest. And then on that birthing scene, it just gets so strange, and it feels like an A24 film. It feels like The Witch. It's also got Ralph Innes in it from The Witch. So that also made me think of The Witch, obviously. But yeah, that birthing scene, it just gets really strange and graphic. And the score just escalates and it just keeps building. And the shots, like, it's from like the front. So like the way the doctors are positioned, they're just covering the birthing parts, but it was getting close. It really was. And I was like, that's getting quite close. And it's a 15 as well. So I wasn't expecting this anyway. And then out of nowhere, like a hand just comes out and it just close up and it just starts reaching out. And I was floored by it. And as soon as that scene ended, it just became an incredible horror film, exactly like Immaculate. I felt exactly the same as I was feeling with Immaculate. And it's weird that them films have come out so close together because there's so many similarities. And obviously, with them being so close together, I doubt either one is copying. But they are so similar. And I feel exactly the same as I did with Immaculate. You need to go and see the first Omen because it's exactly how a prequel should be done. And like I say, after that birthing scene, it's so bizarre. It pushes its boundaries. It escalates perfectly. And I think this is the director's first feature-length film. I think she's only done like TV. I say only done TV, but I don't think she's ever done a feature-length film. And mate, for that to be your first feature-length film, and I'm not sure if she's done any horror, but for that to be her first step into horror, absolutely phenomenal, incredible. She absolutely killed it, mate. It was so surprising, especially with how the first 30 minutes were going, because it was so formulaic. It was hitting every beat. I was bored. I was annoyed. Like, it also had Bill Nye from Love Actually. Well, it's not from Love Actually, but that's where I know him from. And I thought he was miscasting it. Turns out he's not. But I thought he was miscasting it. And I was like, it's so jarring to have him in this film because it was just weird. It just kind of took me out of it. But yeah, man, it's just an absolute masterclass in how to build tension, how to escalate a scene. And also the one thing that she nails with the scares, it goes from just a continuing build-up of dread. Like, the scares aren't jump scares. There's a few, don't get me wrong, there is a few good jump scares, but there's one scare in particular which is in a dark room, and it lingered for so long. I was so uncomfortable with it. It was really, really fucking horrible. And then I was just like, okay, this is where it comes. and it just stayed on the shot, and it was so dark, and then you could see tiny things moving, and it was absolutely horrifying. And some of the scares in it are incredible, genuinely incredible. So yeah, man, I was floored by the first Omen, and I was not expecting that whatsoever, because for me it looked so formulaic, and it was so formulaic at the start. So yeah, man, exactly like Immaculate, I was absolutely floored by it. And if this is the new iteration of like non-religious horror, I'm all for it, because that's not a subgenre of horror that I've ever cared about. I mean, I adore The Exorcist. I don't even really like the first Omen too much, to be honest. Rosemary's Baby is the same. That section of horror has just always been very, very bland to me. Like, especially how much of it we got in the past like 10 years. It seems like every studio film is about religion. And if this is the next step, this is exactly, them two films are exactly what the past 10 years should have been. And that subgenre, it turns out, can be so amazing, because them Immaculate and the first Omen are exactly what I want out of it. And also with the first Omen, it's got so many, it's like a weird cult folk vibe as well. And the way it's shot, the way some of the characters are acting around the main character, it's just so unsettling. There's so many unnerving characters that nothing comes of, but you just expect everybody to be an issue in this film, because it's just, they're all strange, they're all weird, the settings are off. It's an amazing watch. It's incredible. So yeah, man, I'd highly recommend the first Omen. And like I say, if the past 10 years of studio shitty religious films were of that standard, like, we would have had an incredible decade of horror, because them two films have just shown the blueprint of how to make religious non-horror, and I'm here for it. It's absolutely incredible. So them films I'm usually dreading, but the next one it's got high standards to compete with now, because, like I say, them two have just blown it out of the water, and it's amazing. Like, I'm so stoked on Immaculate, and I'm so stoked on the first Omen as well, which was a very, very pleasant surprise. So yeah, man, that's all I've got for you this week. But let me know if you've seen Immaculate, or if you're going to go and see the first Omen. Let me know what your thoughts are, because I love hearing people's opinions. So yeah, man, drop in the comments what you thought of it, and or if you're going to go and see it. But nice one for checking the video out. If you did enjoy it, like it, subscribe to the channel, share it around. That would be massively appreciated. And yeah, see you on the next episode. Nice one.